Good afternoon and welcome to the council meeting. We welcome those that will be listening online, those that are here visiting as well, and to the councillors and staff, thank you for being here. Reminder, if you have a mobile, if you could have it switched off. It just can interfere with our recording, and we are recording, and we welcome those that may be listening online. Welcome to you. I trust you can hear us loud and clear. That's opening the meeting. Please be seated. I have one apology, Councillor Dawkins. So we have a declaration of interests. Councillor Soward. 15.2. Any other declaration of interest? Confirmation of minutes. Somebody moved the minutes held 21st September. Moved Councillor Spencer. Seconded Deputy Mayor. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present. That is carried. No workshops, no leave of absence. Community reports. We have a community report, I believe, from Kim Seagram. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Mayor. This is all about Fermentation Tasmania Limited, or Fermentas. It's a not-for-profit company established in 2016, driven by a board of highly respected industry experts. Its goal is to create the step change the agri-food and beverage industry in Tasmania needs to grow and value add to our incredible primary produce here, creating the jobs and businesses in Tasmania. Our focus right now is on building the Fermentation Hub, an incubator or facility with 5 processing facilities all folded into one hub. An incubator or facility with 5 processing facilities all folded into one, based in Lagana, only 10 kilometres from the Launceston CBD. Based on a cluster economic development model, all around collaboration, so you get those lovely sparks of innovation. It is about creating new products to start or grow existing businesses, provide commercially focused research to solve industry's wicked problems or grow opportunities, create new skills and training opportunities and new career paths for our youth and those wanting to retrain, and tourism opportunities, either as pure experiential learning for our visitors or technical tourism, where people will travel to upgrade their professional skills from around the world. Fermentas started as a paragraph in a consultant's report done for the Centre for Food Innovation, a collaboration between UTAS, CSIRO, and the DSTO at Scottsdale. To get an understanding of what industry needed to grow, the consultants interviewed 50 food growers and makers across northern Tasmania that highlighted we were so far behind the 8 ball, we needed more than one big shiny food centre. We needed to have a network of facilities across the north for people to use, even a shed so people could do things like wash their carrots and put them in a bag with a brand on it was a step ahead. For Launceston, they recommended a place based around fermentation. They highlighted the need for a champion to take this forward, and you're looking at her. A conversation with my colleague and co-founder, Tom Lewis, from RDS Partners, started the ball rolling. We first brought 20 people from across the fermented food and beverage sector into a room over dinner and could have lit Launceston with the energy and ideas that they needed to grow from such a project. From research and skills to trained staff and expertise, everyone had a need for such a facility. Over the years, numerous industry consultations, workshops, and innovation days have seen the concept grow, and an international scoping trip, supported by a scholarship and UTAS, yielded a wealth of information for us to use. The Fermentation Hub will be a world first. When Tom was in Launceston, Sweden, at the Centre for Artisanal Products, talking to Dag Hartson about our project and our region, Doug recommended we apply for a City of Gastronomy denomination for Launceston. We all know what happened there. We're now recognized as one of the great food regions of the world. For those who've contributed, I must acknowledge and give thanks. The West Tamar Council donated 9,000 square metres of land for us to use to build on. Food Innovation Australia Limited gave us a grant of $840,000 for 3.5 years of operational funding to help us get to where we are now. The federal government, through the BBRF grant program, and the success with that gave us the $7.5 million we need for the actual building. A successful Labor election promise is yielding another $3.4 million for the equipment for the hub. We have planning approval. We are now seeking $1.7 million from the state government to bridge the gap in construction cost escalations due to global supply chain issues. Any help here is much appreciated. Anybody talking to Minister Barnett, I would much appreciate that. Being a quadruple helix organization, we're working closely with academia, government, as well as community. With UTAS, the 2-year associate degree in fermentation and separation started 3 years ago. The cider short course started last year, and a cider startup course is to be released next year. These are just the beginning. Fermentaz has also helped broker a deal with the Institute of Brewers and Distillers from London, the only globally recognized industry qualification, with their certificate in brewing being offered through UTAS starting in November this year. I don't know if anybody's purchased a pizza with purpose from Abled Kitchen in August, working with the disability sector, or made a jar of sauerkraut at Harvest with Agriculture in Beaker Street. But our latest offering for North Festival is a fermented hot sauce session, how to make at St. John's on Tuesday, the 18th of October, only $10. And you can stay on for a brew and some spicy offerings if you'd like. Working with UTAS and TASTAFE now, we are going to conduct a pilot on how we can use both institutions to cross-train to meet industry needs. Wish me luck. Now back to the 1.7 million I need. Anything you can do to help, much appreciated.
Yep. Thank you very much, Kim, for your report, and as Chair and all the work you've done over the years. Appreciate it. You work great for our city, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mayor.
So we have an apology just come through for Councillor Dakin. Public questions on notice are there for those, and public questions without notice. Any public questions? Not today, thank you. Go to Mayor's announcements. I think they're all there. Nothing I need to mention. Petitions. So we took 10.1. We do have some speakers for 10.1. So first, and just a reminder to the speakers, it's you hear a sound after the 2 minutes when you need to stop, and try not to repeat what others have said, so new information is always appreciated. So first we have Wayne Venn.
Thank you, Albert. I'd just like to speak a little bit about the creosote sleepers. When we depthened the tunnel, it poisoned the water right through to Lilydale, and the railway carted water to all the residents of Lilydale for approximately 2 years until it cleared. We also, at the Don River, when we was replacing the sleepers, we stacked the heap of sleepers under a blackwood tree beside the river for probably 3 weeks, and 2 years later, that blackwood tree's dead, and that blackwood tree would be half a metre through it. So there's a bit of a problem with them. Hilary Hawes and myself adds probably 50% of the sleepers on the northeast line when they first come out of the kiln, and I've had over 300 skin blemishes burnt off, and he's had the same. And after we'd been adding them, this sort of thing, for a few years, they issued us with protective clothing that we wore every day. The railway took that protective clothing each week away and bought us fresh stuff. Yeah, there's not much more I can tell you about it, I don't think, except that the people that worked in the kiln at Longford, where they was treating them, within 15 years of when they started, there's only one of them left alive out of the 4 of them. So hopefully something will happen about it.
Thank you. Stuart Bryce.
Mr Mayor, councillors, I have been the chair of North East Residents and Farmers. This is my 8th year, and in that 8th year we have strongly opposed any change to the North East Railway line other than for trains. New evidence has come up recently, which other people will talk about, would show that it's a really desperate situation to even think about putting that railway line up. This is the 4th petition that I've championed, 2 to Dorset Council, 1 to the the Legislative Council, and this is the first to the Launceston Council, considering the line between Waina and Lilydale Falls. Not much has been done. None of the petitions up till now have been even acknowledged. There's been 3 surveys done over people's interest in the railway line being retained. One by the Examiner in 2018. All 3 were done in 2018, and that showed 65% support for the retention of the railway line. One by 7LA7SD in October 2018, 73% support for the retention of the railway line, and one that was submitted professionally to ratepayers of Dorset alone, and that was 70% in support of retention of the railway line. Now, while other states are going ahead and rail tourism is becoming a big thing, the reverse is happening with bikes. Now, there's a survey conducted every second year since 2011 between Bike Australia and Ausroads, and that has showed a decrease in bicycle usage all throughout Australia, except one survey, I can't remember which one it was, where it showed that there was a slight increase in the ACT and the Northern Territory, but all the rest of the states have decreased, despite the fact that mountain biking has become such a big thing and is just going absolutely gangbusters everywhere else, including here. So
Thank you. That's your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Wendy McLennan.
Thank you, councillors. Nice to have you. I'm Wendy McLennan. I'm a Dorset councillor, but I'm here in my own capacity. The petition that was presented to you on behalf of the landowners and residents, as well as ratepayers in Launceston, all the persons who are signatories to this petition have expressed major concerns about the proposed conversion of the railway. All railways are contaminated. Major issues of environmental concerns have emerged during the appeal against the Dorset Council proposal. The rail formation and ballast has been in place for over a century, subject to pollution from weed killers, locomotives and rolling stock. If the rail is left in place, the residues remain undisturbed and there are no issues. Numerous test samples taken over the whole railway line by qualified environmental scientists has demonstrated that the removal and crushing of the ballast will release toxic poison into the environment with consequential risks to the environmental values, surrounding waterways and adjacent farming land and directly to human health. The rail reserve was rezoned by Dorset Council as recreational land, which meant it was exempt from Code E2 of the planning scheme to have an environmental assessment completed. Has the Launceston Council undertaken due diligence in consulting with the residents and farmers along the line? Has there been a full study of the legal implications on your council if contamination affects the landowners and potential users? What is the liability of costs associated with the future maintenance? And has the Launceston Council consulted with Lilydale residents on the potential construction on the car park at Lilydale Falls? Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Kabauser.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Alderman.
If you just get a bit closer to the microphone, it's for those listening online. Thank you.
Sorry. I've written 3 versions of 2 minutes, but you can't get it all in 2 minutes. So I've left Wendy's just done some of those. All railways are contaminated. The Victorian government's passed a law that all ballast off railways has to be deep buried. That's in Victoria. That's the North East rail lines, 40,000 metric tonnes to be transported to Copping. So all ballast has to go to Copping at a cost of $400 a tonne, which would be about $16 million to dump it at Copping. And the on-site loading into trucks and cartage at least $4 million plus. So it'll be a $20 million plus operation to remove. And this whole thing's not about trains and bikes. It's about the landowners where the rubber line goes through or beside their properties. It's going to affect their livelihoods, etc. After speaking with the Mayor of Dorset and explaining this, it was dismissed as a joke. I've had over 40 tests done on the North East railway line by qualified environmental scientists. The rail formation and ballast has been placed for over a century, subject to pollution from locomotives, rolling stock and weed killers. If the railway is left in place, there's no issues. The removal and crushing of the ballast, as was put forward by the Dorset Council, will release toxins, poisons into the environment with a consequent risk to the environmental values surrounding waterways and adjacent farmland and directly to human health and safety. One of the landowners I spoke to 2 days ago, he had just $1.5 million worth of cattle on his property. His property, that part of his property runs, the rubber line runs through his property, is valued at $6 million, and the other property he's got next door to that It's worth $4 million, so he's got a $10 million investment, plus he runs these cattle.
That's your time too, Paul. Thank you very much. Your time's up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michael de Bomford.
Thank you for your invitation to speak to the petition. My name is Michael de Bomford. I am an appellant, as quoted by Dorset Council in the original DA1, to remove rail line from Waiina to Lilydale Falls. Within the planning scheme, I was not a landowner adjacent to the rail corridor, was restricted to one ground of appeal being water quality, and issues concerning effects on agricultural land from neighbouring land use could not be raised. It is well known all railway lines are contaminated after industrial use. Contamination being heavy metals, hydrocarbons and pesticides was raised at the tribunal hearing. Site testing was carried out on the northeast corridor where contaminants were found, especially heavy metals within ballast and ground soil material, being hazardous to workers and users of deemed recreational corridor. If disturbed and worst case scenario, crushed and pulverised, there is a danger of contamination getting into waterways, also leaching into the land and ecosystem. Results from testing prior to ground disturbance indicate contamination well over accepted levels, which are well over ANSZECC guidelines, especially arsenic. The Dorset Council moved the rail trail zoning under a discretionary use class to avoid an environmental assessment being carried out. The fundamental point is that if it was proper assessment of the site contamination had occurred, as required under the National Environmental Protection Council, where measures have been adopted by the Tasmanian state policies relate to the development, would have not have been approved due to being a risk to public health. The crushing of the ballast will release toxic poisons into the environment, as highlighted by the industrial chemist, as heavy metal arsenic is 1 million times over the ANSZECC guideline. If trail is constructed, contaminated material will remain on the track and will be available to be airborne to respiratory, airways and absorbed into the skin. Thank you.
Thank you. And Diane Venn.
Thanks. Good afternoon. I am a member of NERAF and LNNER. This petition covers many aspects of opinions, saving the 95% usable heritage railway line, the envy of Yarra Valley Railway because they had to rebuild theirs from scratch. Would this council welcome such a tourist railway in the northeast? Leaving the railway intact with its unique history and scenery would make it accessible to all Tasmanians and visitors, not the minority population of fit, active people. Tasmania has an ageing population, so where in this project is the majority public benefit from taxpayer and ratepayer dollars? Surveys conducted every 2 years jointly by Bikes Australia and Ausroads since 2011 has shown a steady decrease in cycling up until the last survey in 2021. There are 2 exceptions, ACT and the Northern Territory. How many cyclists and walkers do you see using the trails and cyclist lanes in Launceston where they don't have the expense of 30 kilometres or more to travel to start cycling, walking? Do you believe a bike trail from Lilydale Falls to Waiina will be better used? 2018 Australia Day weekend, over 9 days, less than 4 riders per day were recorded on the Scottsdale to Billycock bike trail. Doesn't this indicate that we don't need yet another recreational riding facility in the
Thank you.
northeast?
Your time is up as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers that we may have? That's all I've got here. No, thank you. So we've got item 10.1, just to accept the petition. Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Spencer. you wish to speak to it, Councillor Walker? Just on the petition receiving?
Just on the petition receiving, thank you, Mayor, and I just would rise to thank councillors for listening to the concerns of the people presenting the petition and congratulate the people involved for their continued focus on preserving what is a significant amount of infrastructure in the northeast of Tasmania.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer? Any other? Councillor Harris?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the petitioners for their comments and what they've raised. I just wonder if it's possible when the council officers come back to us, they could tell us how much, if any, arsenic can be absorbed into the ballast, which I imagine to be bluestone, and when you crush it, whether in fact you would be releasing it, because I imagine that the soil surrounding the ballast may have arsenic in it, but when you lift the bluestone up out of it and crush it, you are crushing rock. And as far as I know, rock's pretty hard and may not absorb it, but it was just a question to perhaps answer their major fear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All matters will be considered as appropriate with the petition. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Walker wish to close? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, and that is all councillors present, that is carried. So then we move on to 10.2 petition, Steve Poole for e-scooters in Kings Meadows. No speakers for this one, I don't think. Moved Councillor Mackenzie, seconded Councillor Soward. Do you wish to speak to Councillor Mackenzie?
I think we're just receiving it. We'll await the officer's report.
Councillor Soward. Any other councillor wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, and that is all councillors present, that is carried. We then move on to councillor reports. Any reports? Deputy Mayor.
Thanks very much, Mayor. Two things that I wanted to share. The first thing was it was a real pleasure to represent you and the council at last week's Northern Suburbs Community Centre annual general meeting. Obviously, we know that the president or chair is Councillor Mackenzie, who does a remarkable job working with the community to really get the best out of the community through the house. And it was a real pleasure to go to such an innovative AGM where lots of the staff and volunteers have the opportunity to share the way that they've been, I guess, providing capacity and growth in their community. So another wonderful year from the Northern Suburbs Community Centre team, who, despite still dealing with some of the challenges of living with COVID, continue to do a great job. And the final, second and final thing that I wanted to reference was something that, Mayor, is listed in your announcements, but a really innovative music program that sees a partnership between our City of Launceston RSL Brass Band and the students at Mowbray Heights Primary School, having the opportunity to teach students in grades 3 and 4 the wonder of playing a brass instrument. And so last week, for us to go out and to see their skills on display after just 6 weeks of lessons, working with volunteers, Simon Partridge and other volunteers from the RSL Brass Band, it was really exciting. So they're going to continue learning their brass instruments into the future, hopefully performing at a City Carols event later on in the year, but to see their skills, but most importantly, their enjoyment, working together, playing an instrument, taking the instrument home, a really great grassroots community development program.
Thank you. Any other reports? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks, Mayor. I had pleasure at representing the city at 4:30 or 5 o'clock on Saturday morning, set off Tassie Trail Fest up in Trevellyn, where some hardy souls decided to go for a little gallop of 100 miles. Some 100 kilometres and other distances over the weekend, running around through the Trevellyn Reserve and up through our wonderful gorge. I take my hat off to people who've got that level of endurance in them. I thought training for a marathon was a long way, but 100 miles, which in conversion is 160 kilometres, which was completed by one or two of the participants, I think is just an amazing effort of human body and mind and body. I also was pleased to sort of represent the council at the 5 kilometre walk and run for your heart on Sunday, which was out through Heritage Forest, which was a fantastic morning. Given the things that were competing against it, there were probably 200 or 300 people there doing that event, which was fantastic to see, and it was just a beautiful day, as it always is in Launceston, for people to participate in that. But it was a fantastic and just a message, I think, for everybody out there, and I think they typically do it on the first weekend after daylight saving starts to really get people thinking about exercise. And I guess it's not a one day in the year effect, and hopefully the 300 that were out last weekend will take that up as a regular exercise. So it's something that I certainly champion, is actually people go out physically exercising on a daily basis to try and keep yourself out of hospital and any issues with your heart. And over the weekend I also had the pleasure of attending, both as a volunteer and as a guest at the Launceston International Bowling Classic up at East Launceston Bowling Club. That's sacrilege. And look, a fantastic event for the community, where it brings both international, interstate and local bowlers together to play, I think, for the largest prize pool for an event in Australia, which is really something fantastic, and something we achieved a number of years ago with the Launceston Cycling Classic and the Stan Shaker Cycling Classic, of getting the highest thing there, which meant that we got people from Scotland as well as our Australian bowlers who came down, and a young local got pipped at the post by an Australian representative after a tie after 15 ends, and they had to play a deciding end. So a fantastic job from a young fellow against some of the best in the world. So a fantastic weekend, and I don't know much about bowls, but it was actually quite exciting.
Thank you. Any other council reports? No. Questions on notice from councillors from previously is there? Any questions without notice? No. We'll move on to Tender Review Committee report. Moved Councillor Mackenzie, seconded Councillor Spencer. Just to speak to it, Councillor Mackenzie.
Just briefly to say, this is, I guess, the first step in the Albert work that needs to be done, and a slightly unique methodology that has been put in place to get things moving, where we have appointed a builder, but that doesn't mean they actually get to build the extra additions to the Albert Hall, but they're there as part of the planning phase, and giving their advice in regards to building activities, and therefore are being paid for that staging process. It's a unique one because I guess with tendering arrangements that exist at the moment, with not a lot of tenders out there, but it was a competitive tender. But it just means that we can work our way through the design phase and get ready to start the development, which is planned to start, I think, early in the new year. And then a quantity surveyor will look at it and therefore determine what a value might look like, which the incumbent builder gets the opportunity to put their hand up for. But if we're not happy with what their price is, we can actually go out to tender for further aspects of it. It just means that they'll get paid to deliver the first part of the process.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, these people that have been awarded this contract, they're going to come back and try and change a few things to cost save it. So I'm all for it. They might change some of the designs, but it is hard to find builders to actually start. So they are a mainland company, but they have done other work here and they've been highly recommended. So thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think what this shows us again is that in terms of awarding of contracts, we have to be innovative, and there has to be opportunities to do things a little differently if we want things to continue. So I appreciate the work of the Tender Review Committee with this, and similar things that have come before us previously. What I just wanted to say, importantly, we understand that there's a lot of passion and a lot of heart that goes toward anything regarding the refurbishment of the Albert Hall. And I think really importantly, it's so important that our comms at all stages are correct. So I note that Councillor Mackenzie has made comments, and I note the report where it says this will allow for a refinement of the design in conjunction with the potential building contractor. You know, there were a lot of passionate people when we approved the DA for the Albert Hall who wrote to us, who came in, and who subsequent to that had opinions on it. It's really important that we as councillors and a new group of councillors, and importantly the community, are kept informed every step of the way, and I note that that has certainly been the case so far. We were taken down and briefed very appropriately a couple of weeks ago, which was appreciated, but that's just the beginning. That comms and communication and taking people on the journey needs to be factored in at every step of any way that the program changes to what was approved.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Mackenzie, wish to close?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks for those comments, Deputy Mayor, because Terria, who are our consultant architects in regard to the matter, I think are ongoing through the process. And as Councillor Gibson said, they have looked at all of the various things, access in particular, in relation to how they do the build to make it work, and there have been refinements to ensure that it actually is workable in relation to that. And we understand that that will be a continuing process through this design phase. And as I say, I think it's a really good process, and I think to take on board what Councillor Spencer said, whilst they're a mainland contractor, they will be using largely local subcontractors for the work that they're going to do.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. 13.2, Cultural Advisory Committee meeting. Moved Deputy Mayor. Seconded Councillor Harris. Do you wish to speak to a deputy?
Just to highlight the fact that when the Cultural Strategy Action Plan comes to the table, it should be noted that it was unanimously endorsed by the Cultural Advisory Committee members who were present at the meeting of the 3rd of August. A great deal of work, perhaps more than should have occurred, was undertaken by the volunteers and members of that particular group who have worked extremely hard in the absence of anywhere to start. We actually began work on creating the action plan. It's a very wholesome document, and so when it comes to a subsequent meeting of the council after caretaker provisions, it should be noted that it was unanimously endorsed by all members of the Cultural Advisory Committee, and also important to note that we had some preliminary discussions around the public arts strategy at that meeting before it came to us last meeting for release to the public.
Thank you. Councillor Harris. Any other councillor wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand, and that is all councillors present. That is carried. So then we move on to 14.1, the correction of information. Moved Councillor Soward. Seconded Councillor Mackenzie. Wish to speak to it, Councillor Soward? Question, Councillor Mackenzie.
Just a question in regards to what the information's telling me. As I understand it, our parking meters are designed to be 1 hour or whatever their terms are, and then once you get to the 1 hour, there is actually no ability for you to continue to stay on the parking zone. You need to move on because that's the objective, is to keep traffic moving. This seems to tell me if you manage to last 5 minutes after you've expired on your 1 hour parking meter limit, you can actually reload for another hour. So therefore, our previous arrangements when we had the coin operator or the previous parking meters, you just had no extension, full stop. But this Easy Park app seems to now allow people to actually re-engage with the same parking meter after 5 minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, I don't know. We'll find out.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. The Easy Park app works on a zone system, whereas the old parking meters worked on a bay system. So the app prevents people from...
Not allowed to.
Yes, you could wait out and go to a different parking bay and repark, but not sort of wait it out in the same... Sorry, move to a different bay within the same zone, but not within the 5 minute limit.
Ostensibly, if we manage to defeat the parking meter attendance for 5 minutes, we effectively could get another hour.
Ostensibly, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that worked on the old meters just as much. People used to keep feeding them too. Councillor Soward, wish to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. All I was going to say is that I'm very appreciative, as I'm sure Mr Smith will be, of that slight correction where some advice was tendered that I think it was 10 minutes. That's been corrected to 5. We've corrected the record. Really appreciate the follow-up, and it's really important when people ask questions that they get the accurate answer, and we've provided that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie, wish to speak? Any other councillor wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's all councillors present. That is carried. Let's have a motion that we move into closed council. Move Councillor Soward, seconded Councillor Harris. All those in favour? That's all councillors present. So we now go into closed council. No, we're in open council again, and we endorse the decisions taken in closed. All those in, moved Councillor Soward, seconded Councillor Walker. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. That is carried. We close the meeting. Thank you all for your time.
There you go.